Chapter 1. The night a man discovered the fire inside him. Have you ever heard of the night when a man realized his greatest enemy wasn't the world, but the storm burning inside him? It began on a quiet evening no one remembers. The city outside was fading into darkness, streetlights humming softly, as if whispering secrets to anyone who cared to listen. But inside a small apartment, a young man named Arian sat alone, surrounded by the echoes of a life that felt too heavy, too restless, too loud. He wasn't broken. He wasn't weak. But he felt something he couldn't explain. A pressure deep in his chest, an ache in his gut, a heat in his thoughts that refused to calm down. It was desire, energy, movement with no direction. For years, he thought it was a curse. This pull, this hunger, this fire that made him restless at night and reckless in the day. He tried ignoring it, outrunning it, drowning it. But it always came back, stronger, louder, demanding something he didn't understand. Tonight, though, something was different. There was a stillness in the air, like the universe had paused. Just long enough for him to hear something he'd been missing all his life. He closed his eyes, his breathing slowed, and for the first time he didn't push the feeling away. He listened to it. The heat rising in his body wasn't chaos. It wasn't temptation. It was energy, pure, raw, unclaimed power. A force ancient as fire, but deeply personal. Memories flickered through him. Nights of distraction. Days of lost focus, times he handed his power away without understanding what he was giving up. And in that quiet moment, he realized something that shook him. He had been leaking the very energy that was meant to build him, wasting the fire that was made to forge him. The world had taught him to chase the spark, but no one taught him how to hold the flame. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but awakening. Because now he could feel it, the pulse of life running through him. Not wild, not dangerous, just waiting for a purpose. He thought of the man he wanted to be, focused, centered, unshakable, a creator instead of a drifter, a leader instead of a follower, a force instead of a shadow. He understood finally that this energy wasn't meant to be released in a moment of impulse. It was meant to be transformed, cultivated, transmuted into vision, drive, purpose, greatness. And as the clock ticked softly across the room, something inside him shifted. He didn't feel trapped anymore. He felt powerful. He didn't feel lost. He felt chosen. For the first time in his life, he saw his desire not as something to escape, but as the fuel that could build mountains, reshape destiny, and carve a new version of himself from the inside out. The night whispered to him. He breathed deeper, and the fire stopped burning him and started lighting him. He opened his eyes, calm and unafraid. He didn't rise as the same man who sat down. He rose with a quiet certainty. The power he had been fighting was the very power that would make him unstoppable. And in the stillness of that room, with the world asleep around him, Arian stepped into the beginning of a new life. One where he no longer surrendered his energy, but shaped it into something extraordinary. Good night. Chapter 2. The night he learned to control the storm. There was another night, one Arian would never forget. A quieter night than the last one, but somehow heavier, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. He had learned to feel his energy. Now he had to learn to steer it. The moon hung low over the city, washed in a pale silver glow. It slipped through the curtains and painted the room in a soft light, almost like it was watching him. Arian sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together, listening to the rhythm of his own breath. For the past few days, he'd been careful, mindful, trying not to waste the fire inside him. But tonight, the storm returned. It always did. It rose from deep in his chest, warm at first, then insistent, pushing against the edges of his thoughts. It was the same old pull, the same whisper, urging him towards the same old habits. His heartbeat quickened, his hands tensed, and for a moment the old version of him almost slipped back into place. But not this time. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly, letting the heat spread through him without letting it control him. He remembered something he once read. Energy moves where attention goes. So he guided his attention, not down where the impulse lived, but up toward his spine, toward his mind, toward something larger than the moment. The shift was subtle but real. His breath deepened. His muscles loosened. The fire in him rose instead of escaped. He felt taller without moving, stronger without trying. And then something strange happened. He began hearing his own thoughts with a clarity he'd never felt before. Memories sharpened, fears softened. Plans he once doubted suddenly felt possible. Reachable? Almost waiting. The urge wasn't gone, but it wasn't a master anymore. It was fuel. He held the feeling, letting the warmth travel upward, filling his chest, expanding under his ribs like a quiet sunrise. It felt powerful, ancient, like a forgotten instinct waking up after years of sleep. His shoulders relaxed, his jaw unclenched, and a kind of stillness settled over him. So steady he felt as if time itself had slowed. He realized then that control was never about force, not resistance, not suppression, but redirection, taking the raw current of desire and guiding it towards something meaningful. A vision of his future flickered across his mind. Not fantasies, but real goals. The man he wanted to become, the strength he wanted to carry, the focus he never had before. He could see it so clearly that it almost felt like someone was showing him a memory of a future he hadn't lived yet. And the more he held the energy inside him, the clearer that future became. He whispered into the quiet room, barely louder than a breath. "This is who I am now." It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a promise. It was a recognition. The storm inside him softened, then steadied, and for the first time, he realized he didn't need to fight the energy. He only needed to guide it. With the moonlight resting gently across his face, he leaned back, letting the last of the tension leave his body. He felt grounded, awake, alive in a way he never understood until tonight. He didn't feel controlled by his desire. He felt connected to it, shaped by it, strengthened by it. The fire in him no longer burned recklessly. It glowed. He closed his eyes, letting the night cradle him softly, and surrendered to the quiet truth that had finally reached him. The power he feared was also the power that would transform him. And as sleep settled over him like a slow, warm tide, Arian drifted deeper into the realization that he had barely scratched the surface of what he could become. Good night.